welcome to Hueston Woods State Park. Thanks for taking the time for us to show you around a little bit. We've got lots to do here in the park. We got the lodge, we've got the cabins, we've got the golf course, we've got the lake, but most of all, we've got trails. It's January. It's a little cold, but you know what? Sun's shining today. It feels great out here. Come on out, take a little time, and enjoy our trails.
Today we're going to be walking on the Hedge Apple Trail, which is located across from the 4 Mile Creek picnic area and close to the Nature Center. The trail is 0.8 of a mile. It's a loop trail, and watch your feet because it's a little muddy.
Hedge Apple Trail gets its name from the hedge apple tree, commonly called the Osage orange tree. And it gets that name because the bark has kind of an orangish tint to it. Now the bark can actually look very different from tree to tree. In fact, in some of the older species, the bark almost looks like the weave of a basket. But it always has kind of that orangish tint. And while people may not be familiar with this tree, they're typically familiar with its fruit. Its fruit, the Osage orange, is a green fruit, about that size, maybe about the size of a small grapefruit. And a lot of people call it monkey brains because it has a texture to it. This tree grows here specifically because this area, for a long time before it was a park, was part of a farmer's field. And you would actually intentionally plant Osage orange trees and some others because it created kind of a natural barrier. What you might notice with these trees is they grow out very kind of erratically. And so they make kind of a good barrier to keep livestock in and to keep people out.
Please make sure you let a family member or a friend know where you're headed and what time you're going to be back. And also check the weather. As you know, in Ohio, weather can change fast. So it could be fairly warm or a rainstorm could be coming. And don't check the whole day's forecast. Check your hourly forecast so you know what to prepare for. And also, while you're at Hueston Woods, remember, this is a multi-functional facility. So there's also going to be hikers out, could be hunters out, could be birders out.
Great time to see our wildlife. Mammals are going to be all over this area. You can see some coyotes, foxes, some smaller things like possums and raccoons and squirrels. Squirrels are going to be all over the place. But the biggest mammal that you might get to catch a glimpse of is going to be the white-tailed deer. And if you don't get to see them, still keep an eye because there's some things they leave behind, like their hoofed print, like this that we see here right in the mud. That hoofed print is perfect, so the next time that you're out here on the trail, keep your eyes open and see what you can find.
So we'd like to remind you that while you're on trails, you might encounter different rules depending on the type of trail that you're on. For instance, while you're in the nature preserve, it's required that you stay on trail. However, we feel it's best practice to stay on trail whenever possible to prevent soil erosion, the spread of invasive species, as well as to not disturb natural flora and fauna. Also, the nature preserve does not allow dogs, but if you are on a trail that does, it is required that they be on leash and that you clean up after them. Not all of our trails are multi-use trails. For instance, we have bridle trails. They're designed specifically for horses, and this is where horses are able to be off on the trails. We also have mountain bike trails, obviously, designated for mountain bikes. This is where they're required to stay. So if you are hiking on these trails, do make sure to give way to our horseback riders and our mountain bikers so they can enjoy their trails. Also, it doesn't matter what type of trail you're on. Remember that you need to take any trash with you. Don't leave anything behind. And when you encounter other hikers, be courteous and maybe step to a side briefly so that they may pass.
So as you get to the top of the hill, it's a very small hill, you get to a slightly different type of vegetation. As we get up here, we're getting to some trees that are a little bit older. So you see trees like this cherry tree, like this young beech tree, and then some of the pines that are around here. Probably originally the park planted these pines to get some sort of trees growing, and they created enough shade that the beech trees and cherry trees were able to come in, and eventually this will turn into a more mature forest.
Now, if you were to follow this trail, the Big Woods Trail, it would lead into the Hueston Woods State Nature Preserve. The job of the Division of Natural Areas and Preserves is to identify and protect exceptional natural features, plants, and animals throughout the state of Ohio to ensure they persist for future generations. The Hueston Woods is a dedicated state nature preserve because it is one of very few remaining examples of old-growth forest in the state of Ohio, and is so significant it is also designated as a National Natural Landmark. In order to ensure that future visitors inherit the preserve in the same state we find it today, some special rules apply when visiting. A few examples of these include: visitors are required to remain on the designated trail at all times, collecting of anything in the preserve is prohibited, and pets are not allowed in the confines of the State Nature Preserve. For more information, please visit one of our kiosks at the trailheads or visit us online at the Division of Natural Areas homepage at OhioDNR.gov.
If you're walking along the trail, you're going to cross a small creek. This attributes to some of the wetness that you're going to find on the lower part of the trail. Other things that you're going to find, though, is especially in the spring and summer, this creek has so many different organisms living in it. You can hear frogs, you can see turtles and salamanders, crayfish if you're lucky. But the thing is, all times of the year, you can stop by this creek, look through the rocks, and you will quickly find some organisms from millions of years ago. And those are going to be our fossils. We've got some small examples of brachiopods and bryozoans. Those are going to be some shells and corals that were here during the Ordovician time period. You can fossil collect, take these home with you any time of the year here at Hueston Woods.
Well, how was your hike? We hope you enjoyed it. Just one of a dozen here at Hueston Woods throughout the whole park.